Hi, seventh grade. Miss Diamond here. Glad to be talking with you today. We are actually wrapping up oceans today. So, our last topic for oceans is vertical currents. Now, last week we talked about composition of the ocean, and we also talked about surface currents. Now, remember, surface currents were on the surface, okay? And so, the United States, which is right here, the United States experiences two surface currents on their coasts. So, as part of the North Pacific Gyre, we have the California Current on the west coast. Whoops. California Current on the west coast, bringing in cold water from the north, causing a cooling effect of our west coast. And then we have the Gulf Stream on our east coast, okay? And that is part of the North Atlantic Gyre, which is bringing in warm water from the equator up onto our east coast, causing a warming effect of our east coast. Okay, so that's what we talked about yesterday or last week. Now, today we're talking about vertical currents. Vertical currents are basically instead of just being on the surface, it is going through all the depths of the ocean. Okay, so we're going to talk about two vertical currents. The first one is called upwelling, and the second current is called a density current. So, upwelling is a vertical current caused when basically when wind blows across the ocean's surface, pushing water away from an area, causing cold water to be pushed up on a shore. Okay, so this happens along coastlines. Upwelling is really good for our habitats or our ecosystems off shorelines, okay? And this doesn't occur all the time. It's something that occurs during an El Nino or La Nina, and it's something that occurs seasonally, okay? And so it's really good because it gives nutrients to the ecosystem that it wouldn't have otherwise gotten. So it's really good. So it's bringing cold water up rising on the shoreline and then going back out. So that is upwelling. And again, good for nutrients for the ecosystems off the shorelines. The next one is an awesome current. It is called a density current, and you guys know I love density. Remember, more dense sinks, less dense floats. So, density current, we get more dense sinking. So, it is a downward current, okay? It is pushing water downwards. And so, what's happening is this occurs and I don't think I have a map. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I do. Okay. So this occurs in the Arctic Ocean and it also occurs in the Southern Ocean. Okay. And so what happens is as these ocean waters start to freeze and turn into ice, the water freezes, but the salt is left behind. And so as the surface water gets colder and also saltier, it becomes more dense than the water underneath it. Okay, because again, this water right here is going to turn into this ice and leave salt behind, causing the surface water to be more salty than the water underneath. Okay, so when that happens, it causes the water to sink and creates this current. Now, this density current is so important because it is the driving force of the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt. Okay, so we had a couple of weeks ago, we had a debate over, or a hypothesis over, do you think that oceans mix? And surface currents do not mix. Okay, now, is there exceptions to the rule? Sure. Does it mix, eventually? Yes. But in general, they don't mix. They have different properties. However, oceans do mix deeper down. Okay. So we call this the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt. All right. So this is a large system. It is a global current system that goes through all 5 oceans in our world. And so this circulates warm and cold water, which is going to affect our climate, right? Because it affects our coast, it also affects our climate. Okay, so what happens? Well, because we have this driving sinking force in the Southern Ocean as well as the Arctic Ocean, it pushes this water down, brings cold water down coasts, okay, coastlines, and it continues to circulate. And as it gets hotter, as it gets towards the equator, it gets hotter. When things get hotter, it becomes less dense and floats. So it rises up and it creates this global system. Okay. And so it creates this, what we call the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt, bringing cold and warm waters throughout the entire world and causing changes in our climate. And so, just a little fun fact, this is actually what scientists are a little worried about when they talk about climate change. Now, had we been in school, I would have said, your opinion on climate change is debatable. We can, and we were going to have a full-on climate debate. It was going to be amazing. But unfortunately, we're not going to get that. I am going to still show you the two sides, but this is one of the things that scientists have thought about, is that whenever the global climate is getting a little warmer, okay, even just by a few degrees, this density current might not happen because what's not turning into ice? The water's not turning into ice. Therefore, there's nothing getting more dense and causing this sinking motion. Well, if this density current stopped, then the global or the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt would stop as well, thus bringing kind of a halt to this climate system that it brings. So that is the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt and density currents as well as upwelling. I do have one YouTube video that I did want to share with you, and I believe you should be able to hear the sound when it plays. And this is about the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt.
Oxygen gets mixed into the ocean by the churning action of waves, currents, and tides on the surface. But it's the Great Ocean Conveyor that takes oxygen to the ocean's deepest depths. The conveyor moves surface water warmed at the equator toward the poles. As the water cools, it becomes denser and sinks to the deep ocean, taking life-sustaining oxygen with it.
How do we turn off the conveyor? We simply remove the difference in temperature between the poles and the tropics. We warm the poles, we keep the tropics the same temperature. That conveyor, which is driven by heat differences, stops. When it stops, we lose oxygen on the bottom, and we start the mechanism to mass extinction.
So that was a little bit on what happens if the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt stopped. Okay, so just to give you a little heads up for this week, this is really the only assignment you have to technically turn in. You are going to watch this video today, do the form, of course, and then for the rest of the week, I just want you to work on this study guide. So this is the link here to your study guide, and then this is a resource. So this is basically all of these slides here. Okay, so you have different resources, different YouTube videos that you can watch to help you complete that. Study guides are not going to be turned in for a grade. However, completing a study guide, one, gives you a one-stop shop whenever you take the Open Note, that's right, you heard me right, Open Note Ocean Test next week, okay? So you want to come prepared so then you know all of the information. You don't have to go thumbing around because we have stretched basically a 2-week unit over several weeks. So you're going to forget what we talked about 3 weeks ago. So going and getting that stuff and making it more fresh is really going to help you with your test next week. So I again definitely recommend completing the study guide. However, there will be no proof whether or not you did it, as I am not going to be collecting them at all. Okay, so I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you took the news okay that we are not going to be seeing each other for the rest of the year. I know it definitely hit me. It was hard news to swallow. I've had a few days to reflect, and it still seems so surreal, and I really think it's going to be surreal until next year. I can't imagine not being with you guys. And I just want you guys to know that you guys have been an amazing class, and I will continue telling you how amazing you are, but but I know that you're probably dying to get off this video. So, also notice that there are no Flipgrids this week. That is because Mr. Roth and I are trying to come up with a better, more effective way. So if you have any ideas, please shoot me an email. Any check-in ideas, like I don't know. Would you guys like what is it called? Zoom meetings, or what would you guys like to do? Do you like the Flipgrids? What is your guys' opinion on that? Send me an email if you have one. If you don't have an opinion and you're just doing what you're told, that's fine too. Okay, I will talk to you guys soon. Please email me if you have any questions. Bye guys, have a great week.